The Honourable Kyle McGinn.
Thank you, President. What is a politician if not a mouthpiece for their constituents? Who said that? I did. And I strongly believe in that. President, I rise tonight on behalf of the Kalgoorlie-Boulder community who over the better part of a decade have been done a disservice by their local government, the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. What I will tell you tonight will serve as a strong case study for the reform of the Local Government Act. On the 26th of March, the Kalgoorlie Miner ran this front page. For Hansard, I'm holding up the front page on the 26th of March that says, "Picture of life under former CEO. City staff speak out on culture of bullying, sexism and racism." Look at this front page, members. Shocking. This might seem like a pretty shocking condemnation, but not to me. Over the last 2 years, I've had countless staff, current and former, councillors and other members of the community who have raised some pretty disturbing concerns about the going on at the city. So when the cultural survey of 2021 results, which triggered the miners' headline, were released publicly, I was not surprised. The consistent descriptions within the culture report were endemic bullying and harassment, open discrimination, highly inappropriate aggressive behaviours, dishonesty and a lack of integrity, inequality, sexism, casual racism, no management of poor performance, lack of accountability and lack of governance. I stand here today, members, to make sure this report and the incidents of bullying, harassment, sexism, and there's no such thing as casual racism, are not swept under the rug, because I know people of Kalgoorlie-Boulder deserve better. And for those who were unfortunate to be subject to, and I quote from the report, a toxic organisational culture that is not a psychologically safe place to work. Direct quote from the report. We'll certainly not forgive nor forget unless we see some drastic changes done immediately at the city. In an ideal world, the people who have lived this experience would have been able to stand and tell their truth. But unfortunately, we have had a case where it seems the former CEO has goaded people into speaking out just so he can sue them or so he can invalidate their non-disclosure agreements of staff who have worked underneath him. For instance, last week, from his new posting in Lismore in New South Wales, the former CEO, John Walker, said on ABC Radio in reference to this survey, "Because if anyone wants to take me on, if they want to take on any commentary that might defame me or cause me some damage, then they will hear from my solicitors." I don't know how tone-deaf one man needs to be. When you're talking about being in the spotlight for bullying, perhaps threatening people for speaking up isn't the best way to clear your name, John. I also note he said solicitors, plural. Like he has more than one lawyer on retainer. That must be nice. Well, that's probably because he was paid up to $400,000 a year to do what he did at the city. He continued to receive this attractive sum when he was stood down while being investigated for workplace misconduct. Close to $400,000 per year. That is less than what the Premier is paid in this state. But in the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. While the CEO was able to convince the council to ensure his yearly raises, he was also hit with a $2 million back pay claim by the employees. That's right, the man that's paid more than the Premier in this state thought it was prudent to shortchange his workers. I'm a union man and I can tell you that $2 million in unpaid wages is a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. When it came time to face the music, John Walker ditched across the Nullarbor in his City of Kalgoorlie paid-for car. When the community rightfully questioned why the man who had left under a cloud was able to ride off into the sunset in a ratepayer-funded vehicle, the Mayor, John Bowler, assured the community the car would be returned. He later clarified that the cost of the car returned would be comped by the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, much to the dismay of some of the councillors. We also know Mr Walker was given a comfortable payout, the sum of which is shrouded in secrecy because the city chose not to provide the information to the ratepayers. I know that the current Minister for Local Government has proposed a raft of changes to ensure better transparency in local government, and I would welcome that. It may have done a difference in this situation. What we do know is that the CEO got paid out and also received a 3% pay increase, despite the fact the findings from the March 2021 investigation into workplace misconduct found that, and listen closely to this, members, Mr Walker's conduct is so serious that a court is likely to satisfy that the termination without notice is a lawful method of terminating the employment relationship between him and the city, and that the investigation report reveals a pattern of behaviour which is inappropriate for someone in a senior role of CEO and gives rise to finding a serious misconduct and a right to terminate at a common law without notice in accordance with clause 11.31 of the contract. These damning findings were not enough to convince the majority of CKB Council to send John Walker packing, though 8 out of the 13 councillors thought it was fit to reinstate him and give him a pay increase. It was Mr Walker who pulled his own plug and secured in the knowledge that he would have a soft landing on the other side of the country with a nice little pay packet as a sweetener. Following his departure, the city began a review into workplace culture. This survey garnered 176 responses from more than 120 participated in the focus groups. I will table the report to make sure it is on the record, but let me just highlight a few things. The data indicated that the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder culture had deteriorated over the past 5 years and trust in the leadership had been severely eroded. It's worth noting that Mr Walker started in 2015. Another interesting excerpt from the cultural survey says a significant number of comments also suggested that individuals have attempted to raise claims related to discrimination and harassment. However, the view was that these cases had been settled with legal agreements to make the issue go away, and nothing had been done to change the behaviours in the organisation. Settled with legal agreements. Wow. 27 individuals specifically said the organisation was toxic. One worker said the leadership under the previous CEO was toxic and the leaders learned to copy his behaviour. The culture of leadership are toxic. In the net culture score, out of 100 plus and 100 minus, the city scored minus 56. The average across local governments is 47. Minus 56 under the leadership of the former CEO, John Walker. A shift in thinking is needed, and the administration and leadership and the elected leadership needs to turn things around. As we know, local government elections were held last year, so the council has had a bit of a refresh. The Mayor, John Bowler, was not up for re-election and remains the Mayor who has overseen this disaster and is now unapologetic about it. Despite councillors who weren't even a part of the council during this period, they apologised on Monday night at the committee meeting. Unfortunately, Mr Bowler does not seem to have the same appetite for change. He has all but dismissed the findings of the report and continues to shower Mr Walker with praise. In the face of mounting evidence last year at the misconduct, he released a glowing recommendation of the former CEO, which I will also table. And instead of acknowledging the misdeeds, Mr Bowler instead blamed the community of City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. I quote, "For the first time in my life, I am ashamed of my hometown," referring to the community sentiment against Mr Walker. The Mayor said he considered Mr Walker a good person and a friend, saying the best thing he had done as a part of the selection committee that appointed him to the top job, and in the 5.5 years since, he had not let him down. A truly weird hill to die on, John. Surely this is untenable. Surely you need to have a closer look at the leadership on what you want to attract at the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. Like I said at the beginning, I bring this story to light not to condemn Mr Bowler, although I know people who have suffered would disagree with that. I want to shine a light on the fact that items released in the survey were well known to the community and the workforce, current and former. As the report mentions, and from the people that have told me, the complaints made to the employer, to councillors, to the Mayor, to the investigators were conducted. Surveys were also conducted, but the Mayor remains and the CEO has a new posting and a considerable payout. The only people who were punished were the ones who remained at the detriment of their physical and mental health, or the ones who left taking a financial hit. I would like to think CKB is isolated, but I know that is not the case. I urge the CKB to do better. I urge them to take a serious look at where they're heading into the future. And I know that the Minister, John Carey, has got true reform planned, and hopefully we see that, because this type of situation is not good enough for the people of the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, and I think it's a disgrace that it's gone on, and I feel sorry for all the staff, all the workers and all the councillors that have suffered.